Being part of the Spencer Tiger tennis team, it's intrigued me to look at the history of tennis and how it all began. 4 main points I'm going to be talking about are the roots of tennis and how it began, how the court evolved over the years, how the tennis ball evolved over the years, and the progression of the tennis racket. The roots of tennis come from the Egyptians, Romans, and Greeks, where they played a version of tennis, not like we have today. And the word tennis comes from the town in Egypt of Tinis, and the word racket is from an Arabic word called ahat. And according to the Britannica, the modern day tennis used to be called lawn tennis. Originally, the modern day tennis was played by the monks in France, in like the center part of France, as you can see. And then it was later moved to England in the Hampton courts. And Major Walter Clapton Wingfield patented all the rackets and balls that we play with today in 1874, and he brought it over to US, Russia, Canada, India, and China. And in 1870, Marriott Bridge brought it to America, and James Dwight and Fred R. Sears made it popular. The way tennis courts started were they were indoor courts, and they basically played only with hit the ball against the wall, and they played usually by themselves. And then in the 15th century, they moved indoors with walls that were angled so they could have more strategy, with a drooped net in the middle. And then when they moved outside, it was like modern day tennis, except for they had an hourglass shaped tennis court with the same drooping in the middle net. And then in 1877, they had the rectangular courts like we have today. The way the ball started was they had, in the 11th and 12th century, they had a ball of just yarn or cork that they would just wrap string around it, and it looked something like this. And in the 15th century, they had more leather balls where they made it look more like a baseball. And in 1850, Charles Goodyear made a ball out of pier rubber so that people could play outside, and so it was easier to hit the ball. And from 1920 to the present, they have balls like this, which are now pressurized, and they have flannel on the outside. The way the tennis rackets were evolved were they started off with just using their hands, but they realized that hurt their hands too much, so they evolved to leather gloves with webbed fingerings or a solid paddle. And then in the 15th century, they went to wooden frames that had sheep skins in them. In 1874, according to Complex.com, Wingfield made the first tennis racket that had actual strings in it, like the one you see here. And in 1974, they made the first laminated wood tennis rackets, like this one right here. And then 1968, they switched to steel frames. And then 1975 to present, Weed made the first tennis racket that has an oversized head out of aluminum like this. Tennis has been around for a long time, and it's evolved a lot, and I feel like in the future it'll evolve even more. Questions, anybody?
What made you first interested in tennis?
Well, I'm not very athletic, so I decided that tennis didn't require me to be athletic, so I decided to join it.
Nice.
I was wrong.
How many years have you played tennis?
This will be my 4th year this year. Any other questions?
How often do you replace balls?
How often?
Yeah. When do you know that they need to be replaced?
They usually need to be replaced. You usually squeeze them, and you can tell when they start to get flat. Usually about 2 games, and then they're done. Anyone?